What's up, everyone? This is Stranger, coach of the Pittsburgh Celestelas, and today I am going to be going over my team for Season 4 of the PDPL Pokemon Draft League. Um, Sorry if my voice is a little slurred at any point. I had my wisdom teeth taken out last week, and the swelling and bruising. It's been a nightmare. One of them started bleeding again last night. It took me like 4 hours to get the bleeding to stop. Just miserable. Do not recommend. Just leave them in. It's not worth it. Anyway, so getting into the PDPL is a VGC draft league, and the draft is kind of a points tier system. You get 400 points total. You can draft 10 to 12 Pokemon, and I was the number 4 pick out of 12 coaches. The available Pokemon are basically regulation. What was it, like E or F, or whichever one has like all legendaries but none of the restricted Pokemon. So going into the draft, I noticed that the budget and the point values allowed for slightly stronger teams than last season. I noticed like the team I drafted last season would have cost me less than my total point budget. So that being said, there was no reason not to take a strong tier 1 and possibly even multiple tier 1s without necessarily worrying about having like a super top heavy team. So being pick number 4, I figured I'd get something really strong, but didn't want to draft something that I've taken before. And so the top 3 Pokemon I wanted were Fluttermane, Raging Bolt, or Ogerpon Fire, and just so happened that those were the first 3 picks. So even with the 4th pick of the draft, I did not get anything that I wanted. And after those 3, like obviously Urshifu would have been a great pick, but I drafted Urshifu last season, so I didn't want to do that. And some of the other broken Pokemon like Chi-Yu and Chien-Pao just don't really work with the way that I like to play, and specifically the way I like to draft. Just kind of forces you into either like going all out special or all out physical. So yeah, but basically I was kind of scrambling to figure out what I wanted to do after those 3 got sniped, but we'll get into that more when we start talking about the team. So my other priorities were to make use of booster energy for speed. So it's kind of with the Paradox Pokemon available, it almost becomes like a requirement to have one of the fast Paradox Pokemon that can hold a booster energy and get a speed boost. Just almost like fundamental to the game. To me, it seems like as much as you want to have Pokemon with Tailwind, or a Pokemon with Trick Room, it's like just the instant speed you get from the booster energy is incredibly valuable. And so I wanted to this season kind of have a more balanced draft than I have in the past. Just knowing that the point budget will allow me to have a few really strong Pokemon, but also to round out the team with at least 8 or 9 usable Pokemon, and to prioritize type coverage, especially offensive type coverage, just so that in any given week, I always have multiple options based on whoever I'm going up against, always have multiple options to, hit their whole team for super effective stab damage, basically. And then, kind of going hand in hand with that, I wanted to consolidate support roles as much as possible, and that kind of allows me to, not necessarily use up a bunch of picks and a bunch of points on good support Pokemon. If I can get a few that do most everything I need them to, then I would, have the opportunity to spend more points on just a variety of different offensive Pokemon. And then, obviously, kind of basic draft strategy. You want to have a wide range of speed tiers, and then I try to, within that, also make sure that a lot of my strong Pokemon are in the higher range of the speed tiers. I don't want to, necessarily have, just a bunch of strong like Trick Room sweepers, and then all of my fast Pokemon just are kind of weak, just because I feel like Trick Room becomes a very difficult strategy to execute when you're playing against good players, and just the fast offense tends to be more reliable most of the time. And then wanted to balance special and physical offense, and then you'll see once I start getting into my team, I'm quickly kind of had to adapt and realize I had a lot of my best Pokemon were physical, so I wanted to at that point prioritize getting something that would discourage intimidate spam, like Define or Competitive. And then I wanted to pick good value from the lower tiers early. That's always a good strategy to have. Luckily this season, and I think a lot of it just has to do with there being 12 coaches and there being the most Pokemon available that we've had within Gen 9, that it didn't seem like there were a lot of snipes for anyone, and I don't feel like I really got sniped after, other than my top 3 not being available in round 1. So I kind of picked a few mons that I thought might go from the lower tiers, but mostly I felt like I could pretty much pick whatever I wanted. Just kind of got lucky that way, I guess. And then I wanted to look for a lot of well-rounded tools with a lot of options that I could kind of formulate a game plan each week, and just kind of have that flexibility rather than kind of focus in on specific strategies. In the past I've really tried to reach for I want to make sure I have all of these cool gimmicks that I can use, and it's fun, but I often not end up using any of those gimmicks that I try so hard to draft around, and just you can still use fun gimmicks. You just have to kind of find their window of opportunity when it comes up during a match, and I feel like that's going to be a better strategy for me. So getting into the team, my first pick was Gouging Fire. So again, I was pick number 4. Everything I wanted was taken. I don't think Gouging Fire is a top 5 pick in tier 1, but I just didn't really want anything else on the board that I knew was going to be one of the objectively stronger options. So I decided to go with Gouging Fire. Mostly I just thought that this mon would be fun to use. I think it's really cool. It has some cool tools, not a ton of different options, but enough to, it's never super easy to predict exactly what it's going to be doing. It has a few different things it can do. So yeah, obviously it has that photosynthesis ability. and a speed stat high enough that you can run booster speed if you want. It's kind of the most common set you see in VGC is like booster speed with howl, breaking swipe, and attacking move, or some combination of that. So that's obviously a strong option, but it also just has such good stats overall. Really bulky. Has the opportunity to set up with Dragon Dance. Could be different versions of a supportive set with breaking swipe, snarl, stuff like that. Can run scale shot, which has been shown to be a really good move in certain situations. Burning Bulwark's obviously cool. So yeah, I'm happy with this pick. Was upset at first that I didn't get to go kind of down any of the routes that I had wanted to, but ended up being really happy to kind of build around this Pokemon. I think it'll be a fun mon to use. So then with the next pick, I went with Klefki. So Klefki was actually moved down a tier to tier 3. It's only 45 points, and I've always wanted to use this mon, but it's always felt a little bit too expensive for me in this league in tier 2, and just couldn't quite justify it. So getting this thing in tier 3 felt really good. It has a ton of utility. It kind of accomplishes what I was saying about consolidating roles as much as possible. It's just a support mon that kind of does everything. Obviously you got screens, you got speed control in Thunderwave or Trick Room, you got weathers, metal sounds nice if you can connect, Misty Terrain, and then just kind of some consistent damage options with Dazzling Gleam and Foul Play. So yeah, we all know what Klefki does. Every week I'm gonna have some kind of Klefki counterplay on the opposing team, brick breaks, stuff like that, taunt, right? But again, that's something that is forcing my opponent to have specific text just to counter Klefki, and that opens up some more opportunities for me. So really happy with this pick. Knowing that this was probably going to be something that a lot of people were looking at, I wanted to take this early, even though as soon as I got Gouging Fire and started kind of looking at the way that Gouging Fire has been used successfully in the past, there was one mon I knew I pretty much had to draft next to it, given that it was still available. So I only picked Klefki in round 2 because I kind of looked at the other teams that would be going after me before my next turn, and knew that this next pick would probably not get taken, and that is Ogerpon Wellspring. So yeah, again, I was kind of looking through some of the teams that did well when Gouging Fire was had a lot of usage, and pretty much every single one of them had an Ogerpon Wellspring. This was, whatever the regulation was where Gouging Fire was first legal, and it was always that booster energy speed set with Howl. Next to Ogerpon Wellspring, just the type synergy is absolutely insane between the two mons. You have obviously the redirection, Fire, Water, Grass, and just so in general, Ogerpon, just a really well-rounded Pokemon, just has so many tools, fills so many important roles. You have the bulky redirection, the grass typing, so you can redirect stuff like Spore, water absorb, so you can redirect powerful water moves like Surging Strikes, and the embody aspect is really nice for just being able to tank some special hits when you need to. Drop the grass typing is valuable when you need to take fire attacks or stuff like that. And then obviously the offensive move pool is really nice. You got a ton of coverage options. You got your powerful Ivy Cudgel wood hammer, the knockoff for utility, um, and then obviously you have the standard follow me spiky shield stuff, as well as some additional status options with encore, and a few different setup options with Swords Dance or Focus Energy, and it kind of covers that nice speed tier. The 110 is not the fastest thing, but it outspeeds a lot of stuff if it needs to. So really happy with my core. With my first 3 picks, I actually managed to get a Firewater Grass and a Fairy Dragon Steel core, which is kind of insane to be able to do that with 3 picks. So going into the next pick, I wanted to start getting some more of that utility, some of this valuable stuff. These are the mons that tend to go pretty early. Intimidate, Fake Out. There's only like 3 fully evolved Pokemon that get that combination, and it's obviously really good. So Scrafty is just a good sport mon in general. Just having some of those tools. Really, it's just Fake Out, Intimidate. Like that's all that this thing needs to do, and it does it pretty well. Obviously, it has the 4 times weakness, but it's I try to avoid 4 times weaknesses a lot in draft, but mostly it's going to be like those tier 1 and 2 really strong Pokemon that are really hurt by the 4 times weaknesses. Support Pokemon can kind of get away with it a lot more often. If they're teching on fairy moves onto mons that wouldn't otherwise carry them, it's an extra move slot just to take care of my tier 3 pick that is kind of just there to support and can pivot around a lot anyway. So I'm not too worried about the typing. It's obviously nice to have a dark type, and it just has a lot of good utility. Good offensive coverage with its stabs, poison jab to hit those fairies that threaten it, and then it has bulk up for itself, coaching for its teammates, and a few other nice support moves as well. So happy to have Scrafty. I haven't drafted this Pokemon before. Actually, I think I have successfully drafted an entirely unique team of Pokemon that I've never used before in draft. So I usually try to do that just to keep things fun for me, and I don't play enough draft leagues to where that's becomes really difficult to do. So keeps it fun. All right, so for my next pick, I went with Gengar. So another really good value pick. I feel like this is a mon that was dropped from tier 3 to tier 4, and I feel like it just does so much for that value. So I wanted to kind of get this early. It fills up one of the special attacking roles. I was starting to get to a point where I had a lot of physical attackers, pretty much just physical attackers. So I need some strong special offense. Gengar's got 130 special attack stat. It's got a good speed tier. Unfortunately, it's the exact same speed as Ogerpon, which it'd be nice to have something a little faster than that. But it just gets so many good moves. Ability is Curse Body, which is kind of nice. You can run Encore and Disable, or you could just run Encore because they'll just get disabled when they hit you. So it's not something that you really plan around, but every time it comes up, Curse Body ends up being pretty nice. Gets strong stab moves, good coverage moves, set up with Nasty Plot, and then just a ton of good utility moves. Haze, Wisp, like we said, Encore Disable, Icy Wind, and Trick Room for speed control. Gets Perish Song if I want to try to go that route. It's just I feel like a really versatile mon. So happy to be able to get Gengar for so cheap. Next pick, round 6, went with Frostmoth. So I think, and again, I think this is really good value for 15 points. Another strong special attacker, so filling in some of those gaps. You know, it's nice to be able to have another setup option next to Follow Me, Ogre Pawn with Quiver Dance. It's a tailwind option. It's got you know, just strong offensive moves and Ice Beam, Bug Buzz. Obviously, it struggles to hit certain types, but you know, you could always run Terra Blast to cover for those if this is going to be kind of a, you know, like a focus, an offensive focus of the team. And then, yeah, just the Ice Scale ability is just busted, just doubling that special defense. I felt like it was really valuable to have kind of a special tank, given that, you know, I have Intimidate and Gouging Fire's defense stat is so high. Having something that can really take hits well on the special side was going to be valuable. And yeah, just some of the other utility you get with like Struggle Bug, Icy Wind, and Wide Guard could make this mon really valuable in certain matchups. Okay, so next, got the Braviary. So I knew with this slot I wanted something to discourage Intimidate. Again, the first two, the tier 1s that I picked are both physical attackers that can be intimidated, and so I knew I wanted a Defiant or competitive mon here, and I knew I wanted a flying type as well, and there was actually 3 Pokemon that could have filled that role for me. Braviary, Galarian Zapdos, or Galarian Articuno. And I really thought this was going to be a Galarian Articuno. I kind of planned a bunch around that, and it didn't get sniped. I just kind of changed my mind at the last minute, and just was like looking at the move pool of Galarian Articuno. It's like, man, this thing just really kind of sucks. Like, it just doesn't do it. You get the competitive boost, and then you still just get walled by Steel type because you're clicking Air Slash and Freezing Glare, which aren't really that powerful anyway, and it just gets no coverage moves. You're kind of forced to run Terra Blast just as an offensive option with it, and yeah. The other thing is that what I feel like Braviary does a lot better is it discourages Intimidate while also benefiting from the Gouging Fire being next to it. So you can click Howl, boost the Braviary, and they can't switch in there Intimidate to nerf your attack. So I feel like that ends up being more valuable than the competitive, where yeah, you can throw your competitive mon out there and discourage the Intimidate, but if they don't bring Intimidate, you're just kind of doing nothing. So yeah, obviously Galarian Zapdos would have been a great option here as well, but that was a 60-point mon, and I felt like those points were going to be better spent elsewhere. So yeah, Braviary is a great pick. Strong stab option and Brave Bird. Usually you're going to run close combat as well. It's not stab, but just a really good move. And it ends up being a really good Scarf option with moves like U-Turn and Rock Slide. It's another Tailwind setter, not a fast Tailwind, so I don't really have any fast Tailwind setters, unfortunately, but it's bulky enough that it usually can take one hit in order to be able to set up Tailwind, and then a couple other utility moves that it can run with some stuff like Bulk Up and Whirlwind to phase out, set up, or Trick Room or whatever. Also can run Sheer Force if I'm not being threatened by Intimidate. It gets stuff like Body Slam. Sheer Force is really strong. Iron Head. Obviously, its best moves in Brave Bird and Close Combat don't benefit from the Sheer Force, but it's got some other moves that it can take advantage of. All right, next we got Sandy Shocks. Pretty late in the draft to be taken Sandy Shocks, I was kind of surprised this thing was still around, but was happy to get a strong ground type. That's just always tends to be the hardest thing for me to do in draft, is to get a good ground type. I usually end up missing out on that extremely valuable offensive typing. So yeah, I was really happy to get Sandy Shocks. Covers my electric type as well, which is always a good offensive type to have. And it's another speed booster photosynthesis mon. So and the speed tier is a lot better than gouging fire too, to take advantage of that booster speed. You can kind of, you know, hit those speed stats to you know, outspeed a lot of scarf mons and stuff like that, and it can get speed boost with speed control with Electroweb, which is nice. Also can just set Sunny Day for itself and for gouging fire, which is really nice. And then yeah, it's mostly just going to be running its stabs, Earth Power, Thunderbolt. Doesn't have a way to hit grass types, but you could either run Terra Blast, and also have, you know, gouging fire and Bravery to cover those grass types. And yeah, it's going to do gravity stuff, screens, area impulse. Just a really solid mon. I feel like it really rounds out the team. Being able to get, you know, fill the roles that I needed at this point, this late in the draft, with such a strong one. Okay, next we getting into the kind of the end of the dregs of the draft. Just have a few points left, trying to figure out the best way to spend them. I always spend way too much time trying to figure out what to do with my last 30 points or whatever. In this case, I decided to go with Basculin. I don't want to talk too much about kind of these low tier picks, because they're mons that, like, you know, I drafted for a very specific reason. There's like one thing that I want to do with them that I think would be cool, and you know, if I talk about that, then as soon as anyone sees these mons on my team, they'll know exactly what I'm trying to do with them. So, but mostly the reason I picked Basculin was actually just because I realized that I didn't have any priority on my team, really. Like Ogerpon gets quick attack, and that's about it. So yeah, that's just something that I feel my team was really lacking, and it's something super valuable to have. Always, you know, having an option to pick off focus sashes, low HP Pokemon. So just, you know, having adaptability Aqua Jet is kind of the main reason why I thought Basculin would be good. This is the form that can hold an Eviolite, which is kind of nice. It actually has, you know, pretty solid base stat total for a mon that can still evolve. So could have pretty decent bulk, still has a good speed stat, and you know, 92 attack with adaptability, being able to click stuff like Wave Crash. This mon can actually still do a lot of damage. Doesn't get Swift Swim, unfortunately, so it's not, you know, quite like a discount Basculegion in that way, but you know, it still gets like Last Respect, and yeah, you're mostly just running the adaptability set with this thing. So hopefully get a chance to use this once or twice. Still thinking I might end up trading this for something else down the road, but hopefully I get to use it, get some use out of it before I do that. Next pick, final pick, I had 10 points left. I went with Lycanroc. So yeah, this thing's, you know, it's trash. It's garbage. But you know, for 10 points, it's a rock type. It does rock type damage, and yeah, I don't think I'm giving anything away by saying, like, yeah, if you see this thing on my team, I'm probably clicking like Scarf Rock Slide. Like that's like all this thing is good for. No guard means you can't miss your rock slides, and Stone Edge is cool. and some more priority with Sucker Punch. It's pretty valuable. But yeah, mostly it's just Rock is one of those types that, you know, like if you have the option every now and then, it's like, oh wow, my opponent's team has 6 Pokemon that are weak to Rock, and now at least I have that option. So yep, this thing might come once, hopefully, we'll see. Anyway, so yeah, that's the team. Overall, pretty happy with it. There's definitely some things that could have been better. You know, if you look at these speed stats, not really loving my fastest Mond being 110, but obviously I do have the Sandy Shocks and the Gouging Fire that can hold the booster energy, and that kind of, you know, counts as like a pseudo faster speed stat on the high end. So also, you know, don't really have much on the low end of the speed stats. I definitely, you know, debated heavily at the end about trying to get some, you know, slow Trick Room Pokemon, either Trick Room Setters or Trick Room Sweepers, but ultimately I just find that, you know, that doesn't end up usually being that valuable. There's just way better ways to counter opposing Trick Room, and if I want to use Trick Room myself, it's usually because my opponent's team is really fast, in which case all of my, you know, middling speed Pokemon can be utilized under Trick Room in that case. So I don't really need like the super slow Trick Room Sweepers. But we'll see if I kind of decide partway into the season that I feel like I'm really missing that, I could make some trades and pick up some slower Pokemon. Yeah, and then the type coverage, or defensive type coverage, I'm really happy with. I actually was really close to drafting every single type. I'm only missing a Psychic type. I almost went with a Psychic type instead of Basculin, just to say that I drafted every single type. I don't think I've ever done that before, but yeah, so the result of that is a pretty balanced type chart. Obviously, you have a lot of ground weeks. That's, you know, inevitable. If you draft every type, you're going to end up having a lot of ground weeks, since ground is super effective against like 5 different types. So, but also was able to get, you know, ground immunity and a couple of resistances. So, not feeling too bad about that. And yeah, that's about it. So overall, really excited to use this team. I don't know how it's going to do. It's kind of weird. It's going to take me a few weeks, I feel like, to get used to using it and to really figure out how strong it is. It's hard to say. It's got a lot of the tools that I like to have in draft, and it's got, you know, a few weaknesses that I wish I could have found ways around, but ultimately I think it's pretty solid, and I hope to have a good run. Last season I think I lost in quarterfinals to Tay on a misclick. It was it's like game 3, and I think I had a winning play, and it was either like a misclick or I just timed out. I think I probably timed out. I do that a lot. Yeah, so that was a real bummer to have my season end that way. So hopefully I can do better this season. I would love to you know, make it to finals and hopefully win. So yeah, thanks for watching, and stay tuned. I plan on recording every week my matchups, so look forward to that. Hopefully we get some more content from some other people in this league. It's always fun to watch everyone else's games and kind of see how the teams progress throughout the season. So we will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.